Years ago when I first bought it, I'd say to my wife, geez, that's a lot of money sitting in the shed there, we should sell it. And she goes, if you sell that, I will cut your balls off. Hi there, my name's Rob Annette, and this is my 2007 997.1 GT3 RS. I've owned this car since new and picked it up from a Porsche dealer in Sydney all those years ago. It's a 3.6 litre, naturally aspirated, 415 horsepower, and it's a lot of fun. Its colour is commonly known as Viper Green, but its actual colour from Porsche is just RS Green. I've tracked the car over many years. I don't do it now. My reflexes. So my love affair, which is obviously quite troublesome, with Porsche, didn't start with a 911 or a GT3. When I was a young fella at high school, my mum used to buy a magazine way before the internet came around called TV Week. And in the TV Week magazine, there was a contest that if you could write in 100 words or less why you read TV Week or why you liked TV Week, you could win this lovely red Porsche 944. Now, as a teenager in high school, or nearing the end of high school, the idea of how many girls I could pull with a red Porsche 944 was quite appealing. So I thought, geez, I want one of those, but my writing skills weren't up to scratch, and wouldn't you know it, I didn't win the TV Week competition, and I didn't win the Porsche 944. So I have that to thank for my desire then to go out and do something with myself, try and earn a little bit of money, because I desperately wanted a red Porsche 944. So as life went on, starting a business or starting businesses, that sort of thought faded away a little bit. And the notion eventually came back when I thought I was doing well enough to afford a Porsche. I hounded a friend, or a friend of my dad's, to part with his old Porsche that sat in the shed for so long and hadn't been used. And eventually I got that car from him, which was a little blue 911T that's behind me. So that was my first Porsche, but I still had to scratch that red 944, which being a member of the Porsche Club in New South Wales, a guy who I'd met through the club owned this red car, the 944 here, and I have this thing in life where I say to somebody, if you ever want to sell that, let me know. And occasionally these things come true. So again, the phone rang. It was the guy from the Porsche Club saying to me, Rob, were you serious about buying my 944 when I was ready to sell it? And I said, yes, of course. So the deal was done, and Mark, my mate, who I bought it from, he and I are still great mates to this day, and we do some of those road trips together and so on. So my initial love affair with Porsche was not a 911, it was not a GT3, it was not a turbo, it was a red 944. I loved the shape of the guards, I loved the way it sat. It was a much more modern car than what they were or what the alternative was in the showrooms at the time. So yeah, that was my Porsche interest was sparked by that car, and I still love it. I drive it all the time, and it's just a fantastic car. It's a bit like a Boxster. People who haven't driven one will knock them, but you let them drive them, and it'll soon change their minds. The greatest cars that Porsche have made, I think, are the ones that have saved their business, saved their company over the years. The 914, the 924, the 944, and the Boxster, all brilliant cars. So over all the years of ownership, so many people have come up to me and said, "So what do you call it, Kermit, do you?" And I said, no. It's always been affectionately known as Snot. And they say, "Well, why do you call it Snot?" And I say, "Because it goes like snot." So all those years ago when I decided I would love to own a GT3, I initially wanted a white one, and I wanted to put a carbon fibre bonnet on it and paint the interior or the console white. But I read in a magazine, an English magazine all those years ago, that Porsche was releasing their latest 911 RS model, and that it would be available in some of the colours that the original 73 RS came in. And in the column in the magazine I read, the guy said, "I'll have mine in Viper Green, thanks." So all of a sudden, my dream of owning a white GT3 turned into a RS Green GT3 RS. So it was a little bit more expensive, and people said to me, "You should have just lost the weight yourself instead of paying all that extra money for a lighter, faster GT3 RS." So when I decided to order the car, I previously bought a new 986 Boxster S from a Porsche dealer in Sydney, which I still own to this day. And I went back to the same dealer and said, "Rob, are you able to get me a nice new GT3 RS?" And Rob was from Chinese background, and he said, "Unfortunately, we have sold all our allocation of GT3 RS, but I can pull a lot of power with Porsche." So anyway, I sat and waited for about 8 months, and just before Christmas, the telephone rang at home, and it was Robert Lee, and he said to me, he goes, "Robert, I have secured for you GT3 RS." And all of a sudden I thought, "Oh my God, where am I going to get the money for this thing?" And that's how it came about, and I've owned it and loved it and enjoyed it ever since. It's got, apparently you're not supposed to drive these things. An RS is supposed to be put in a shed or a showroom or a heated room, and you're supposed to look at it. But I've got nearly 75,000 Ks on it. I have had a lot of beers with it and looked at it, but I still drive it almost every week. It gets taken on some very long epic trips down to Victoria with a bunch of mates, and we head down over the Alps, down to Phillip Island for the historics. So it gets well used. It's got stone chips on it, which I'm very proud of. It's got marks down the side from old tyre rubber from when I used to track it all the time. It has been lower when I used to track it, but with the roads I have up here in northern New South Wales, I've raised it a little bit. and it makes it a little bit easier on your jaw, on your teeth, and on your liver and your kidneys because it's so tightly sprung. So I've raised it up a little bit just so I don't scrape the bottom of it too much. So, but still very enjoyable. Every time you take it for a drive, it is a sense of occasion. You get a little bit nervous. It makes a lot of noise. And years ago when I first bought it, I'd say to my wife, geez, that's a lot of money sitting in the shed there, we should sell it. And she goes, if you sell that, I will cut your balls off. So hence to say now, I've still got it. And every time I had that thought, if it happened again, she'd go, just go for a drive. And I'd come back from a drive, park the car in the shed, have a beer and say, as I do to this day, I'm never ever selling that car. So yeah, it's just awesome, I love it.